What is up, you savages? This is the Protect Your Neck podcast, and I'm your host, Dan Tom. Analyst is work you can find over at MMAJunkie.com, but on this here program, the Protect Your Neck podcast, we break down high-level MMA. That's what we're going to do here tonight. Whenever you're listening to this, hopefully it's before the fight, as I'm recording this on West Coast Pacific time, as I like to say Pacific time, because I am, of course, here in Las Vegas, where UFC 260 is going down. That is the card we will be breaking down, of course. Check the timestamps for when that starts from top to bottom, as I always provide them to you in the show notes. Thank you for the 5-star ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts if you're listening there, or any of the podcast players, or if you're listening to the audio version on YouTube, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, Daniel Tom MMA. It helps. And of course, the show notes there will also provide said timestamps if you want to jump ahead. An invitation I always allow you to do and never hold you hostage for the recap that usually happens in the beginning, which will happen, or the occasional notes, which did happen last week, and you know, God forbid I will shout out empathy for human lives every once in a while. But if you don't want any of that stuff, of course, again, I give you guys the invitation every week, so I don't, for anybody getting upset, which we'll get to briefly, and push on to the more positive and pertinent things. Folks, I don't hold you hostage. You don't got to listen to the show, and if you do, you can go right to the breakdown. In fact, and I'm not throwing shade at other shows who only do parts of these, and as I am one of the only shows, much less with one host, that does all these for you, I also give you guys the option to skip to the very effing end to go from top to bottom, where I just recap the picks and plays. Like, you barely got to listen to me. So, again, folks, I don't know why I got to keep apologizing or explaining when, I'm sitting here doing the work, giving you guys the options. But either way, I'm not trying to start on that note, because I'm super grateful. And before I touch on literally like the one negative comment from last week, because most of y'all are human beings, I feel like I've curated this audience as so, which is great. Thank you all, from multiple different countries, sexes, religions, sides of the political spectrums, which I could care less about. It didn't matter. You guys were human beings, and I appreciate the kind words you shared with me on the old Twitter at DanTomMMA, where I'm most active in posting all of my content, if you've just been familiar with me through the audio medium. So yeah, that's the outline of today's show. We're going to do a quick recap, expedited edition, check the notes, or you can check the time right now to see if I'm lying or not. And I'm only gonna try to keep this like just a quick 5 on recapping from last week up until the relevance of now on those previous notes. So that's kind of the outline for today's show, folks. So thank you again, even though it's my first inclination to apologize for the opening, the hashtag Stop Asian Hate opening of last show. But I believe, sadly, I was proven right as far as why not just Asians, but people, with a heart need to use their platform sometimes, even just for awareness, because ironically enough, in a community full of martial artists, people getting bullied and targeting doesn't seem to garner much empathy. In fact, in a community of martial artists, there's very little empathy to be found from fighters to fans, which suck. And in the community of MMA, where most of us make our money from fighters, fans who gamble, or just rely on it as their entertainment, or media people like me, or the promotions themselves, it was like fucking crickets for Stop Asian Hate in comparison to a multitude of many other topics, race-related or not. And it's sad, but even more sad because it's not exactly surprising. And again, Dan on an Asian thing, fuck me and fuck an Asian thing. Isn't it just ironic? Can we just for a second clear our biases and feelings for a second? How ironic is it, in a community full of martial artists, and a community of people who make their money off martial arts, that there's just fucking pretty much crickets, Because I was thinking, and I'm tying this up because I had one listener who, and I keep my DMs open, which is funny, because guess what, folks? When I say my DMs open to you, especially for mental health related issues, I actually mean that. And I talk to quite a few of you listeners on the regular. And some it's just normal conversation. Others, it could be deep shit. And I'm going to leave it at that. I will never mention names. I'm never going to light up anybody's stuff. Okay? It's always between us. And that invitation is always open because I actually mean it when I care. Not perfect. I definitely not the most timely. I can't guarantee the fastest responses, but I can guarantee I'm going to try. So I just found it ironic that amongst those conversations and those people, very cool people and martial artists, that one listener, will just say, and leave it at that, just said that essentially it was unsubscribing from my show after last week because I was getting too political, which is funny because speaking about Asian lives is not political. I'm not political. I have no, like I said on Twitter, to wrap this up, and we're going to push forward to the breakdowns, folks. I'm not going to spend only like 5 here, if that. But I do a good job as far as for just a single co-host and doing recaps, which not everybody does, keeping a format, which not everybody does, going through every fight, which not everybody does, and then recapping at the very end from top to bottom, which almost nobody does. And I do it solo consistently for years. Do the work for you. Allow you to timestamp, to skip, and I take no offense. I give you that option at every show. So it's just between that to the martial arts thing, it's just so goddamn ironic that, like, speaking out about things, and not even nothing to do with politics, just innocent people being targeted, old people, women, races, minorities. Like, I don't know what's so political about that. So if you don't want to hear that, or me mentioning it literally 2% of the podcasts, because I've been really good. I know I do my stay on target and I get sidetracked during the breakdowns, but as far as like talking about personal shit, I've cut that way down. I did a bunch at the beginning of the pandemic because, again, no one was talking about mental health. And guess what? Oh, Dan talking about mental health, and everything I said, sadly, has aged very fucking well over the last year. It's all stuff I wish I was wrong about, by the way. I'm not a victory lap guy in general. Definitely not about this. But everything has factually been backed up that I said, first of all. And second of all, it was needed. Even last week, what I said to that the Asian, for me, whether it's me being Asian or just having a platform, needed to say something because most of the martial arts community didn't, and not trying to throw shade because I could have jumped on that train when, there's two certain hosts who I actually like and respect, even though I've only had interactions with one of them, but the other was accused, well, not accused, I mean, he did do very insensitive Asian stuff, and it was like a big uproar. And if you notice, even though I probably could have, I did not jump on that train. So for anybody accusing me of being political or looking for any excuse, that would have been all the excuse in the world. But I'm not a hater. I wanted to see all the facts, and I was late to that, and neither here nor there. The fact is, you go to the timeline of both those people, or you go to their show, not a fucking word about Stop Asian Hate. People that make their money off martial arts community, just like me. Or just like the UFC, which I was actually, and I don't even know if I don't know how to do it, or if I want to, because I'm honestly just been so overwhelmed emotionally from this last week. And the fact that I, God forbid, speak up for my people, that people just, the shit that I get in return for it, which again, it's been 9-1 positive, so I'm not going to complain or over dramatize that fact. But yeah, I'm kind of burnt out. But part of me, my initial intention was actually to ask the UFC and not like gaslight them, like, use it as an excuse to dunk on the UFC. Like, no, I want to be heard. I want to get things done. I want positive. I'm not trying to call the UFC out, but not just, I figured with all their, everybody criticized the UFC for making connections with Bruce Lee every few years, which feels like they're just jerking off the Lee estate, to be frankly honest. And there's nothing wrong with drawing those connections or questioning those connections, and the kind of arguable overreach to connect Bruce Lee to the UFC. But if we're going to connect Bruce Lee to the UFC so regularly, why can't we give love to Asians? Or is it only Asians that make us money? Because when I looked, and I know they, just because they do, a Black Heritage or Latino Heritage Month, it doesn't mean they're doing a great job at it. See Michael Chandler piece, right? And that's not a shot at Michael Chandler, but that was very, that was distasteful from the UFC. And I feel like they admitted it in their own way by going and putting out another piece quickly. But they've also done stuff for Latin, history and Latin fighters, which is great, albeit, you can also tie that to their investing into the, Latin markets and Mexican markets around the Fox era. Either way, however they got there, they're doing it. Good on them. I'm not trying to shit on the UFC, but to kind of put my point forward is that, what came up when I typed in Asian heritage or Asian pieces for UFC? Zero. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? That's isn't that ironic? And I even reached out and to some Asian American UFC fighters or Asian fighters that aren't even in the UFC now. And I'll leave that private. But one of them got back to me, and they weren't saying anything bad about the UFC. They appreciate the UFC's platform they gave them, but they said no. I was never approached, nor am I aware that they ever did anything for Asians. Martial arts company in Asia. Oh, they're investing in the there's a lot of politics there, folks. It's real dirty. When you get to China and stuff like it, it's the government, not the people. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know, and it sucks. So that is Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, for at least in my country, is May. So with UFC being an American company based on martial arts, let's see if they do anything this year for us. Would be nice. Would be helpful, because rather than me talking to my couple hundred listeners and turning away a few at a time every time I bring up this, it would certainly be much better just for a big platform to put a positive message out there. That's all I'm going to say. And we're going to push on. This is going to be a fun place where we break down fights, and I just wanted to continue off of that. And if you guys, again, if that offends you, that's fine. And like I said to that person, I guess what? I'm still going to wish you the best at the end of the day. But don't shame me. Or even if you're not trying to shame me, don't label this as politics. Just say you don't fucking care, because this has nothing to do with politics, and I could give a shit about politics. So saying that you have a problem with it because of politics, just say you don't fucking care. But I'm going to move on. All right, UFC Vegas 22 recap. 4-6 overall picks, terrible. Again, I warned you, it was all in the void. Between all the fallouts and the craziness of the week, which I don't have to get back into, it was not, I warned you guys. 0-1 in official plays, and I think I went like 0-4 in like what I ended up taking for bias stabs and all that stuff. It was headlined by, of course, Derek Brunson versus Kevin Holland. Derek Brunson defeats him by unanimous decision. I should have known this. Is one of those things, again, where I lay out the path for the winner, and it's just I call it the odds that don't make sense, and then I still pick the dude. I just, oh my gosh. And that had the fingerprints all over it with the line split. That was, and thankfully I didn't play Holland, but I just feel dumb for picking him, because I know better. Dan, he always picks the southpaw wrestlers, right? Veteran wrestlers. Well, maybe not. We'll get to that. Max Griffin defeated Song Kanan. People are seeing what I kind of talk about with Max Griffin in his interviews, how he's just kind of like, he's very lovable, with the watching his own replay going boom, pow, whoa, man. He uses his facial expressions. But yeah, definitely sucked for old China, definitely, we're taking L's all over the place. Well, they canceled Thick Willie, which is sad. That's the second time I guess. It sucks about breaking down fights late. I don't get to talk about Thick Willie twice in a row, But they paired him up with what was that, Da-Un Jung, like Song Kanang, Max Griffin. They're just pairing up all my Asian brothers against athletic dudes who are just gonna KO them. Oh man. Anyways, but Montserrat Ruiz defeated Cheyenne Baez via unanimous decision. That was a biased pick from me, and boy, was there value. I may or may not have played Ruiz at those dog odds, because like I said, that was stupid value. Yep, she was just doing her head and arm thing, which is normal from her, and you could tell Baez trained for it, but she was skipping a step, and she kept trying to parlay it into back takes before getting to her base, which kind of pops an escape when you actually can get to your base from those positions. And I feel like she was just getting greedy there. She actually got to escape angles multiple times, but live and learn, hopefully, for her. Adrian Yanez defeated Gustavo Lopez, third round KO. That sucks because Gustavo Lopez, I felt like, was livelier than the odds, and even though it was an admitted bias pick, which automatically should be my excuse for no matter how bad it looks, no, because I actually did like Yanez, and I wasn't discounting him. I was writing about him for most were, now I'm going to be just jerking this kid off because he's really good. I like him a lot, by the way. Nothing against him. I like his personality to his style. But just, again, from the MMA betting bias, young striker. Dudes are just going to be unzipping every time his name comes up, and the odds are going to reflect it, sadly. So if you jumped on Yanez at these odds, good on you, because you're probably not going to get that until he faces the top level. And Lopez, sometimes like these wrestlers I train with, I'm like, yeah, this guy's a good wrestler, and then they go out and they don't wrestle, and I'm like, God damn it. Granted, there was a lot of counters and reasons for that, but yeah. That sucks for my man Gus, but good on Adrian, man. He's very much like, since we don't get to talk about Volkanovski this week either, very much like Volkanovski in the sense that like every feint, everything he's showing has a reason. And not like feint to draw a reaction, but like Volkanovski's, he even feints counters to scare you. Like most people, it's so hard to scare, you have to be such a good counter striker to scare people off with counters in MMA, but to be able to do it and incorporate feints into scaring people off is super impressive, and you really gotta fucking... know your shit to be teaching someone those lessons in the middle of a fight. And Yanez does that. So, one to watch. Tied to Ivasa on the board, defeated Harry Hunsucker. Not going to make fun of that guy's name because, God, it's already, probably gotten that poor guy tortured growing up. It's like they're talking about his tattoos. Like, yeah, you're going to have some dark tattoos if your name is Harry Hunsucker, okay? Poor guy. Leave him alone. It says another dude with dark tattoos and grew up troublesome. Macy Chiasson defeated Marion Renault via unanimous decision. That was pretty. She's using her physicality, pretty spot on there, I guess. What was predicted. Grant Dawson defeated Leonardo Santos via third round TKO. Boy, that was tough. I guess Grant Dawson didn't need the finish according to the judges and a decent amount of Twitter. I think I was on Spaces at this time, so I wasn't really scoring. Although I did want to replay Matthias Nicolau getting knocked out by steel chopping Dustin Ortiz from Willow, because everyone points to the head kick, but he actually blocked the head kick, but it went through and got him rocked because he only blocked with one hand. And the finishing shots actually came on the ground because Nicolau, like his Nova União counterpart, Leonardo Santos, they actually go for the same leg entanglement, but they don't put an emphasis. Probably because they're rocked in Nicolau's case or tired in Santos's case, and they make the mistake and they don't debase their opponent, and which allows a longer opponent from topside to gamble with those top, ground and pound, which can be devastating even if you're not athletic. See Rick Glenn in the WSOF, and Grant Dawson puts Leonardo Santos out. Good on Dawson. It's just one of those things where it's just like, I was wrong. I guess he did get main cards early in his career, Leonardo Santos, but like at the last half of the decade at least, the guy couldn't make it off the damn prelims. They just kept matching him up with like young dudes or just nobody dudes, and it just sucks. It was just a bummer for matchmaking, and it made it look like I was souring a bet by tweeting that, but it had nothing to do with the bet. Honestly, it's you guys know me. I, God forbid, have sympathy for, vets who put it in, and I know that there's fucking a long line of people looking to jerk off the next young guy who comes from the sport every fucking week. Like, they don't need me to jerk them off. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to show sympathy for the vet who's been there. I'm sorry. And I actually don't have anything against Grant Dawson. I will, though. I think Zane Simon, that bastard, passed something on to me because, listen, shout out to Zane Simon, actually, in the Vivi section where I just quoted that joke from. Yeah, I think, like, Zane, like, a couple Grant Dawson fights ago was just like, oh, I don't know what it is about this kid. Like, this is his style, his face, which... Definitely that face. I mean, look at that face. Does he not look like the fucking bully? Like, you're never going to make the hockey team. You should just quit now. Like, he's totally that guy, right? There's just something about him that makes you want to dislike the kid. And he's, like, probably, like, the nicest dude. But he just seems so fucking unlikable for, like, someone like me who thinks, like, athletes cheating or, don't like bullies, even though he's probably, like, the nicest dude. He just has that face where he looks like he's the bully in the movie. So, yeah. Pouring out for Leo Santos, but good on Grant Dawson, man. I know I'm joking here, but man, no hate toward him. Jay Giles defeated Roman Dolidze via unanimous decision. I don't have an issue with the decision, and I didn't go back to watch round 2, which I'm guessing was the swing round. But again, this is what I get upset about because, the difference was everyone's like, if you're gonna make an argument, like, oh well, this is what I don't get. Like, if someone wants to grapple, and not only do they get him to the ground, But then they get into submission attempts and entanglements. And when the fighter can't escape the submission entanglement properly and starts swinging back, like, even ignorant fans like 15, not just 10, like 15 years ago, no, oh, that's a bad sign. That's desperation. That means they don't know how to get out. But now it's like, oh shit, he's swinging back even though he's in a submission. I think we got a fucking even round on our hands. Like, when the fuck does that happen? Whoa, 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 whoa. Giles hit the Lidze very hard with those shots. I'm like, did he? Because they were both on their asses without being able to generate power. Those are just arm punches. Like, the Grant Dawson or, the other, even the flyweight fight that I cited with the Dustin Ortiz, like, those guys completely had their base. That's why they were able to deliver knockout shots. That's why when you go for leg locks, you need to debase people. And say what you will, about the leg locks costing them. And if that was the case, that's fine. I'm not here to live and die on the scorecard. For me, what upsets me is the opinion of the fact that it should be close because of this. Now, if you want to count the damage that Giles did for the brief moments in the feet, I'm actually much more sympathetic to that argument. Because, again, I am okay with what the rules say, by the way, that we should be rewarding and prioritizing damage. I'm not against that. I just feel like we're overcorrecting the steering wheel here. Luke just weighed in. I just feel like we're overcorrecting the steering wheel here. And now it's just like to the point, like, and again, I'm hearing educated people do this because, and it's not to go out, the commentators do a fantastic job. It's a tough job. But when the commentators go, Bispinger's song goes, oh, everybody's swinging back in the submission. And then you got to hear it like fucking echoed by everybody. Like, I was talking to my man, by the way, shout out to the Southpaw Podcast at southpawpod.com. I was talking to my man, Sam Yang. Like, it's like he put it best. It's like a messed up game of telephone, that goes from the production to the media to the fans. And it's just this echoing. And again, I'm not living and dying on the scorecard, but can we agree that's fucking silly? Like, and like, you want to talk about damage, like, you actually can visibly see, and even the commentators themselves, who, just as much as I can say, Bisping can be biased towards strikers than grapplers, and it shows in how he, hypothetically rewards those situations. Obviously, he's not a judge. But at the same time, give credit to Bisping in the commentary because they also spotted the knee poppings on the replay. So I guarantee you Giles isn't walking right, And that's the dangerous thing about going for leg locks because you give position, you open the scorecards, you open subjectivity to obviously some stupidity. And I'm not saying that toward commentary. I'm talking about the general opinion. And not only that, it's just like you can damage a guy's leg, but like it's one of those things, man. Like people, even with arms and shit, we've seen it. Fighters don't tap, men and women alike. Okay, like it's in a fight, and that's something like I know I've had that discussion with myself or others, before fights, at the amateur level at least. Is just like even at that level, where you're not getting paid, like these fuckers aren't gonna tap to joint locks. So if there were joint lock submissions that I liked or my people on my team liked, we were usually talked into stick to more of your head and arms or your RNCs. That's the stuff that's going to work. Or not guillotine, lose position, but you know what I mean, like more blood choke kind of deals, chokes, because if they're not going to tap, they're going to go out at least. Whereas leg locks and arm stuff, too, you'd be surprised what people won't tap to. And now then, when you don't have, when you have ignorant judges not rewarding that stuff, all of a sudden you get, again, I'm not going to live and die on the entirety of the round, but most of the round was fought on the ground. And one guy was a grappler that wanted it there. He wanted it there, put it there. He wanted submissions. He put him in submissions. He was attacking submissions for the majority of the time. Popping his knee, not getting the tap. But I'm like, so the fact that people, it was just fine if you still want to give it to Giles, but I was seeing like educated people going, that was a clear round for Giles. I haven't rewatched it admittedly, but clear? For the guy that didn't know how to defend he's supposed to be a black belt, I think, or a brown belt, and he doesn't know how to disentangle legs for a whole round? We're rewarding that now? All right. Montel Jackson defeated Jesse Strader, first round TKO. Bruno Silva defeated JP Baez using all the cheating playbook. Again, folks, this is what have I been talking about? The eye poke thing. Then we see the eye pokes. Herb Dean and Dan Tom's complain. Well, when Dan Tom complains and rants, sadly, there's a lot of fucking truth to it, and you usually don't have to wait but a fucking week for me to be proven right. So you don't gotta like me or what I'm saying. But yeah, surprise, surprise, more stuff from this show gets proven right. So reward to you listeners. And yeah, sure enough, only now we're finally starting to hear something that Dan Tom's been fucking screaming about for years, which is the official warnings are technically and should be given in the back, and we should just be going straight to fucking points for, not for intent, but for damage, right? We're overcorrecting the scoring cards for damage. What about actual damage from fucking fouls? Nope. Just gonna keep chasing our fucking tail here. Because that's MMA, folks. I already shouted the Southpaw Pod. I want to shout. I did a little funny mix-up, but I do want to give a shout-out to my man, Derek Love, round 3 play. D-Love round 3. No, D-Love's round 3 this week, but I haven't said that in a while. And follow him, one of my favorite MMA gamblers, at Master_Love 007. 007, Derek, you a James Bond fan? That's right, Moneypenny. Q. I need something that looks like a penis and works like a flashbang, but cues off of the word blueberries. Dan, what version of 007 did you watch? And I mixed him up with Dustin Love at DLove, I think _84, Dustin Love Pod there. Go check out his show. Just wanted to give those shouts there. All right, as we go and look at the timestamp here, 27 minutes. Wow, Jesus. We're going to go into UFC 260. All righty. Boom. All right, headline by Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou 2. Miocic opened as a plus 190 dog. Money has come in and brought it somewhat down to earth, although you can still get Miocic's dog odds, listing at plus 110 for me here. Minus 130 in your favorite, the challenger Ngannou, to do what he could not do the first time. My in-depth breakdown is up at MMAJunkie.com. I haven't listened to a lot of content on this, trying to keep my filters clean. But I will say one thing I haven't seen is I've seen a lot of talk about for people justifying the Ngannou pick, which feels silly because, again, folks, just because I pick someone, let me be clear, just like last week, that doesn't mean I agree with the odds. I picked Holland, but I wasn't confident in it. I'm actually a little more confident. I don't even know. No, not even a little more. I'm just as reluctant, I should say, as this one. But, again, I'm going with the favorite who probably shouldn't be favored. So, like I stated in the breakdown, folks, I'm not trying to disrespect Stipe. I felt like I had a whole year of people going, you disrespect Stipe. Like, why? Because I credited him as being the better fighter, but said this is heavyweight. And, he gets hit. Jesus Christ. Relax. I like Stipe, even though he's, not the most gracious of a winner at this time. It's just like, I was rewatching his footage, I'm like, oh yeah, like, Palkin, he's so passive aggressive in like what should be his happiest moments. I always hate that shit. Like Adesanya and Stipe are the worst of that. Like they have these amazing victories and they're just like they just can't wait to just tell everyone to fuck off, which I appreciate. But like at the same time, like you could at least be happy for yourself, no? But I just remember him talking to fucking Joe Rogan. He's like, yeah, I think I did it, huh? And Joe's like, yeah, you did. What? Steve, I'm trying to give you your moment. Why are you being passive aggressive to me? But yeah, no, I don't know why. I don't always pick against Stipe. I picked him last time, and I totally forgot. I even called a little bit of a Liddell Couture dynamic that played out, which it did play out their trilogy. However, people are, I think, justifying the Ngannou pick based around that said Cormier trilogy by saying the 311 significant strikes that he took or whatever, right? And stats are so funny, man. I'm seeing a lot of quoting on stats, but it's like sample size, folks. Fucking sample size. What did we see on the broadcast? We saw a fighter with like 4 or 5 UFC fights getting like some credit for like most in divisional history. I'm like, dog, the division that he's in has been around for a decade. This guy's barely had 5 fights in 2 years. Should we really be, cherry picking stats like that? I get they gotta have stuff for production, but that's why these people go fucking stat crazy. Like, this guy's the leader in this. I'm like, yeah, well, Ngannou has better takedown defense and better submission average than Stipe. You know what I'm saying? Like, does that mean he's gonna dominate him on the ground? First of all, word from Eric Nixig, don't be surprised if you see some countering wrestling from Ngannou. But no, that's not gonna be the general game plan or outlook of the fight on paper. So stats are deceiving as fuck, people. And the one thing I'm hanging my hat on when I'm rounding to is not so much the significant strikes on damage, but again, folks, fouls. The damage from fouls. And I'm going to credit my man Sam Yang, again, on the Southpaw Pod. He asked me the question about COVID, saying, are you tracking Omar Morales is weighing in 145. Oof. I don't know how that guy makes it. But, yeah, he does not look happy about making 145. But we'll get to him anyways. But yeah, it's fouls. It's fouls. You know, talking about COVID and like Sam was asking about like COVID. Like, are we tracking that? It's hard. You know, maybe now I think after a year we can start tracking it. As soon as we start getting some long haulers back in, like Chimaev. Not that I'm excited for him to go back. These people to go back in, mind you. But you know, according to Dana White or Kadyrov, they're ready. Or Ali. You know. But yeah, like we'll see more of that comes in. But it struck me when Sam asked me that, because for me, here comes Worthy to the scale. For me, it's more like, what about these fouls and eye pokes, right? When you think about that now, and when I went back to look at it, there was pretty much just an eye poking trilogy, right? And Stipe, I believe in one of the fights it varies, but in all three fights, arguably the worst eye poke each time happens to his left eye. And that's why people were speculating, oh, he didn't see the right hand off the clinch break, right? Which may have knocked him out anyways, because it was a clever one. But then Stipe shows that once he did know it was coming, he takes it a whole bunch of times in the second fight onward, right? So some speculate in the first fight that the eye poke had something to do with it. However, aside from just comically pointing fingers, pardon the pun of eye poke talk, there really wasn't much speculation as far as that for Stipe after that, which is ironic because he suffers multiple more eye pokes in the next fight and then in the fight after, right? Where he, of course, gets Cormier back. Cormier gets the worst of it in the third fight, so perhaps that's where the intention was. But when you look at those fights, it's funny. I know I say Stipe gets hit more traditionally with lefts than rights, and you're like, but Stefan Struve knocked him out with a right hand, and Cormier knocked him out with a right hand. That's true. The knockout shots may have came with the right, but if you actually comb through the footage and you look at overall, Stipe is getting hit more disproportionately with lefts than anything. And that could be a similar reason to Cormier, because he has that inherent boxer-wrestler style where he likes the snatch singles. So not only is he dipping to the power side in a natural crouch, but he's leaning with his crouches because he's got the snatch single / the snatch single feint. Excuse me. In there. That's why, John Jones called the left high kick, because, if you have that kind of a style from an orthodox stance and you're dipping to your power stance disproportionately, arguably, you're going to be open or run into more effective left-handed shots. So that was the reason why I picked Ngannou the first time, because even though Ngannou power side is clearly his right, he deceptively does a lot of conducting of traffic off his left side and can convert that into his power hand off the counter when he fights from southpaw, kind of the similar shot that dropped Miocic from Overeem, the southpaw left hand. And of course, as far as the dipping propensities, you've got shovel hooks, uppercuts, and hooks for days off the orthodox stance on the lead side for the left of Ngannou. So those things will still be there. However, I find myself focused on the other side of Ngannou and on the other side on more of Stipe, which is the right-handed power attacks. Sure, we could see Ngannou measure more of the pace that he's talking about and his coaches are talking about with leg kicks. The man kicks legs hard. And he has been slightly better about mixing it in and evading him. His overall read on distance both ways have gotten better since his early UFC fights where we saw him getting taken down off of a propensity to throw naked kicks. Something to watch for. Obviously, not only did UFC 211 Stipe suffer leg kicks, that has been something that many of us have pointed to since when he fought Junior Dos Santos for the second time, but something not mentioned that I'm seeing mentioned again in the Cormier trilogy. I mentioned it to look for in the third fight because he had success through it. And if you look at the stats, Cormier really had success kicking Stipe's legs either at a straight 100 percentile, depending on the fight, or at the lowest in the 90 percentile, where he remained through the entirety of the trilogy. That is 90 percentile accuracy in attacking Miocic's legs. Where Cormier got lost is he started headhunting because it paid off in the first fight, and he lost track in both the second and third, and started headhunting. He got away from the leg attacks. So that's always going to be something that's there for Miocic. However, I mean more of the right hand, which, as you saw against Miocic, against the last two wrestlers, against Kane and Blades, it was the counter right hands that put them out, as unorthodox as they were. And back to the eye poke with Stipe sustained to his left side, we all know that, say what you will about speculation that people were throwing about in the first fight. We don't hear much more about it, ironically enough, after he has surgery between fights 2 and 3 because of the eye poking damage. And coincidentally enough, if you watch the trilogy, Stipe, who I set up as to why I think he has taken traditionally a disproportionate amount of lefts more than rights throughout his career, that flips on a fucking dime. Come the second fight, and especially through the entirety of the third, every meaningful right hand that's both thrown meaningfully and thrown, you can throw it meaningfully and be out of range, right? But both thrown meaningfully and within range to hit, literally hit Stipe. Not 9 out of 10. Not even 9.5 out of 10. Like 9.7 to 10 out of 10 hit Stipe. He cannot find a right hand that he doesn't seem to like because I don't think he's seeing them. It's very dangerous to make that kind of a speculation, but there's a lot of fighters that fight blind whether we realize it or not. My man Sam on Southpaw Pod was just talking about this. He knew one. It was a question on whether to bet against him because these guys, they got to make their payday. And maybe these year in between fights weren't coincidence. Maybe it wasn't a coincidence that when you go watch the third fight where Stipe's I believe is very compromised, that literally from the jump street, Stipe's corner is yelling at him like it's round 5 and or round 1 against Ngannou. Like the most frantic of situations, like you're down, you need to win, or you're almost going to get knocked out, get the fuck out of Dodge. Look, they're screaming at him. I know Cormier knocked him out, but he also knocked Cormier out. It's the third fight now. Like, look at the first 30 seconds of the fight. They are screaming at him to get on your bike and stay away from that power hand, Stipe. Keep those hands up. And that's not abnormal to say someone stay on your bike or circle away from the power side. That's not abnormal, folks. But the way in which the frantic of the corner is screaming at it, I think they know. Like I said, corners can tell you a lot about a fighter. From their ego to other things, what's going on with them. The fighter will keep his poker face till death the best he can. But the corner, whether they realize it or not, just by their direction, it'll tell you a lot. So I think Stipe is not seeing things from that left eye. And so I'm going to go Ngannou by late first round, early second knockout after what I suspect is going to be a feeling out process. But I do not hate anybody playing Miocic for plus money out of principle. I completely get it. He should be able to wrestle, and the improved conditioning from Miocic, some people are saying that it could be bad for him taking shots. That could be true, but I think it's actually better for him because it's going to allow him to do the game plan. Because he was dead tired too in that fight, folks. And he wasn't able to really hold Ngannou down that well, despite how tired Ngannou was. So I think the added conditioning is going to help Miocic. Good luck if you played him, but my pick is Ngannou here. No play as of yet. Vicente Luque minus 255. Tadden Woodley plus 215. I'll keep it short. Luque all day here. Pressure. So like his second or third Sanford MMA opponent. They're gonna keep him prepped. I just don't trust Woodley, man. I don't know why I picked him against Usman because I swear I had Woodley's number forever. He's just opportunistic guy. He sits back on the cage and waits for a right hand as he goes to weigh in right now. And he looks smaller, by the way, and not in as great shape in these last few years. Woodley looks so smaller. He does here, too. And he had some injuries to get through. I don't trust it, man. You could talk about, he's like, when do I back up to the cage? He's like, these guys have me backing up. When do I ever back up? I'm like, Woodley, you've always fucking backed up. You've always been susceptible to losing those fights. I really just think it was kind of luck of the draw, honestly, which makes me upset because my man, Karate Stephen Thompson, baby. Still think he should have been the champ. But yeah, man. Fucking fading Woodley hard. I'm gonna try to parlay him with someone on this card who already weighed in. Vicente Luque. But yeah, there's going to be a couple scares and Luque's going to roll. You really don't need much analysis there. Sean O'Malley minus 320. Tomas Tominhas Almeida plus 260. Boy, do I want to pick Thomas Almeida like most people, and I get why you're playing him. I would say where. That wasn't a Freudian slip. I did not play Thomas. Although, if he keeps going up, I will sprinkle. But the pick's going to be O'Malley. Man, I think people are hoping for the old Thomas Almeida to come back. I think that's the wish here. But that's always a dangerous thing, A, to wish for, and B, I was fading the old Thomas. I was one of the first people on that. And yeah, I might have been wrong about Brad Pickett, but I said Brad Pickett because of left hook. And what does Brad Pickett drop him with? Left hook. Sure, he loses the fight, but he mapped out the game plan for everybody else for me to cash on Cody Garbrandt against Thomas Almeida and so on and so forth. So if you've got a decent left hook or a left hand, you can beat him. Now, O'Malley doesn't have the best left hook, but he does have a really good southpaw left hand. And if you look at Almeida against his last southpaw, against Jonathan Pedro Martinez, that thing was landing at will. So that's all I really needed to see, because I think a newer Thomas Almeida would have a better shot. And he was doing, some stateside training, trained at a bit of Extreme Couture, but he only really showed 2 decent takedown entries, and they weren't that threatening. And because he wasn't trying to run his legs through, it was like he was just trying to get the takedown in their head. And that's not what you do with O'Malley. You got to go for the takedown. So he's going to have to really completely fight against type here to beat O'Malley, which I don't think he can do. Although Thomas Almeida, he would, again, you saw to keeping people safe. And Henry Cejudo saying, himself, people have figured it out. Well, Thomas looks extra good for this fight again. Looks like, he looks pretty healthy. Kind of back to normal, you could say. So that's a good trend for Almeida bettors, but the pick is O'Malley. He's a douchebag. For sure. Like, God forbid, O'Malley, can you just, that answer to the Megan Anderson thing, your answer is to remind people that, she lost her job. I felt so bad for Megan, has to get shit on and, like this, and then get put on the same cards by the people that shit on her, or watch, the promotion promote, these people that just do not seem deserving. But it's nothing new, folks. I'm not going to sit here and complain about spilt milk. I judge these people as fighters, and so that's why I'm picking O'Malley here. But yeah, part of me rooting for Almeida, bet your ass. Miranda, Fear the Maverick, minus 160. Gillian Robertson, plus 140. This sucks. And now I really don't blame people for blaming Robertson because of the line spread as asking for it. Although if the line comes back down to the minus 135 where Maverick opened and stayed at last time, then I'll play it straight. But I'm on Maverick here like I was last time. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt to Robertson's black, but I believe her brown is much more applicable. Robertson's a wild girl. And against more athletic girls who can play positionally, she's running into trouble even if they're not as good of grapplers, right? So against a more athletic girl, stronger girl, and Maverick, who actually has really good positional play, I think that's bad. I also think Maverick's the better striker. I was a little worried about that after her eye surgery. And yeah, she took a little bit in the beginning against Jojua, but you saw what the goal was there, and it paid off. And just the fact that she had the proverbial cojones to do that after a surgery. We see people from eye or nose surgeries come back shooken. It tells me that A, she addressed it properly, to have that confidence, and B, that confidence is just a good fucking sign. So I'll take Maverick here, but that's the crappy thing about these rebookings is you get a worse line always. What was that guy? Romanov, right? He went from minus 115 to minus 305 because the odds makers saw what people like me and others were saying, and they realized they fucked up. So they get bailed out by COVID and they get to rebook it at a completely different line. Not so much the case here, but yes, a more inflated, not as sexy line if you were a Maverick sider. And what also sucks is you think oh well, it's one less fight you have to break down, damn, because you already broke it down. Dude, there's so many fights. It's like Dunbar's number, man. I forget. I wrote it from a man damn stuff, but I have to go refresh myself, on previous writings because it's this stuff's doesn't stick in fresh. There's so many fights that we have to cycle through each week, folks. So I got Maverick here. Kama Worthy minus 130. Jamie Malaki plus 110. By the way, my line would be minus 780 if that John Anik will put a Boston twang on the Malaki on the broadcast. Cash that ticket, baby. But I actually want to go with Malarkey here, but I'm sticking with Worthy because that's who I submitted for staff picks. But I do think he's live. I think I saw on the Twitter scroll, my man Nick Kalikis, shout out to Nick. He's on Malarkey. So good luck to Nick and anyone betting Malarkey. This is definitely a dogger pass spot. Malarkey's super well rounded. You just got to stay out of the guillotine. I think he can grapple Worthy, out grapple him here. However, Worthy's got a mean left hook, and Malarkey gets tagged up with left hooks. We saw what Brad Riddell did to his eye. I think even in Malarkey's last fight, Faraz Zahim got him with some left hooks. And you could argue that Malarkey won that fight. I didn't, by the way. So anyone playing Malarkey, I don't blame him. Feels like a dogger pass. But I'll pick Worthy to get him with the left hook. Abubakar Nurmagomedov minus 240. Jared Gooden plus 200. Man, I was looking to parlay piece with Abubakar, but it just feels like a sketchy stay away, man. I'll pick Abubakar, but this feels like another dogger pass. Jared Gooden, I believe, is like a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt, man. I know he can strike it out on the feet when he needs to and shows all the tools to do that, like he did with Joe Bam. But the guy actually, I believe, was Jiu-Jitsu first, or, surprising amount of Jiu-Jitsu, just maybe not the wrestling intention. So let's see, if he can just get a grappling fight out of Abubakar, or Abubakar's shown that he can be submitted in someone's guard with David Zavada, right? And Zavada better than given credit for, but I think the thing with Abubakar, it's interesting. It's totally that, I get that vibe, like that Gracie feeling vibe, where it's like, fuck, I don't want to do this, but my last name's Gracie, so I kind of have to be, like you look at indoctrinating into wrestling and all that stuff, because he doesn't have that fighter feel to him, that meanness, Like, Makhachev doesn't feel like he has the same athletic gifts or durability as Khabib, but their willingness to fight, he doesn't feel like he's got like a lack of willingness to fight, whereas Abubakar, I get those vibes. And yeah, he's a master of sports and combat sambo and his accolades, but another one of the accolades here I found interesting is that as far as competition goes, he only has a silver medal to show, and as someone with aside from that in-house Extreme Couture first place, like I think like in Nagas and those types of competitions, like the best I ever did was silver, and I fucking did a Abubakar. I flopped. I have one of my best. I'm really good at top, and my best defenses is triangle. Granted, it was an inverted triangle, but still, I just got like inverted triangle in the first literally 10 seconds of the gold match, finals match, and I just felt so stupid. And I saw a silver medal there for Abubakar, and part of me thinks, like, is this something that, like, what we saw with Zavada, is that not new? Or, like, the Pavel Kush, who, granted, was, a scrappy grappler who was known to upset in that PFL series, who also submitted him. Like, is this a pattern here with this guy? Like, does this go back to that silver? Did he get the gold, and did he just fucking, just shit himself under the lights, so to speak? I'm not saying that as a negative. I'm a guy who, you get accused of the same thing for goddamn sure. But if we're looking at things objectively, it's something you got to ask yourself. So, the jury's still out for me. Not enough to pick Jared Gooden. I don't blame you for playing him. I will probably stay away, as I've stayed away from this matchup. But the pick will officially be Nurmagomedov, albeit not a confident one. Next fight, Michal Oleksiejczuk, opened at 167, now minus 155. Comeback on Modestas Bukauskas, plus 135. Shout out to my man Aaron Bronstetter. I know that's his guy. I like Modestas, man. A really smart dude. Well-rounded. His dad was well-rounded. They come from the more military/traditional martial arts mixes. His dad was like a no-holds-bar fighter. Modestas did a little bit of that, also with the karate black belt there. Does a little Rory McDonald impression between the serial killer eyes and haircut to the jab on the feet. Really likes that jab. Pretty well-versed and well-rounded. It just, the speed and explosive athleticism is definitely not there for Modestas, and I think there's going to be a big speed difference. So I'm going to go with Mikhail. Mikhail's gas tank and pace management can be questionable, but Modestas has an even worse record as far as been to decision less / won less decisions. So I don't know if he's going to be necessarily the type of guy, especially with him not being a wrestler or wrestler first type fighter, the type of guy to exploit, submit, or tire Oleksiejczuk. Oleksiejczuk looks super soft and small on the scale, but that's normal for him. So I do wonder, with Modestas being really well built on the scale, I think this line's going to tighten. So I'm picking Oleksiejczuk, and even though I wasn't confident enough to play him, and seeing him on the scale and face-to-face might not have increased that confidence, however, I think it's going to do that more to other people who didn't look at the skill ratio here and are going to go by looks and are going to bet this number down tighter, which I think means we're going to get some value on Aleksejuk. So for me, I think I'm going to have to wait till minus 140 or lower to pull the trigger on Aleksejuk. But I'm picking Aleksejuk here. I think speed is going to be the big difference. Omar. Best character in TV history. Omar from The Wire. Minus 190 versus Shane Young, plus 165. Big fan of Shane Young, man. I was talking about City Kickboxing before people were talking about City Kickboxing because I was talking about Shane Young. And, of course, there's Izzy, right? If you knew who Izzy was. And the reason why I joke and say Brad Waddell was the best City Kickboxing fighter is because, like, what about Volk? Volk only been there for his last 4 fights, all right? Volk's main coach is George Lopez in Australia, and he actually trained with Malarkey. So Malarkey got to train with Volk, by the way, for this camp, because his main camp's in Australia, folks. That's why. And Shane Young was one of the first early guys for City Kickboxing. Even Dan Hooker came over there later to join guys like Shane Young. So I'm a big fan of Shane Young. Obviously, he's not like the second coming of Christ or anything. I don't know why I'm like pumping my chest for like, you know, watching him from back in the day, but just for whatever reason, you know, Maori kid, appreciate my Maori brothers there. But I like Shane Young. That being said, you know, Ludovic Klein was a tough draw. I don't think that should be condemn him or his chin because he's never stopped before that. However, he's shown that he can be stopped. That was a bad knockout, and he's going against a big guy who has never been stopped in Omar Morales, who keeps decent volume out there. Training at Sanford. He's got a bunch of kickboxing accolades himself. Although you want to talk about weird martial arts ranking, he's got a 3rd-degree black belt in slam, a martial arts his dad created. But he actually went and did kickboxing stuff stateside in Florida. Has plenty of kickboxing experience stateside in tournaments, prior, and during MMA. And again, training at Sanford with a bunch of wrestlers there. I don't think Shane Young is going to be able to get that attack on him. So I'm going to go Morales here to win a comfortable decision. It sucks. One of my houses, fucking BetOnline AG, doesn't even won't let me parlay shit right now for whatever reason. I don't know why they do that. Someone can fill me in on why they're ignorant. But I'm trying to parlay Morales and Luque for plus money. That's going to be the play here. Whereas my bookie doesn't even give you a Morales line, probably because the fight was threatened to be canceled earlier this week. We're going to Florida, maybe we'll see. But that's my play. If you can get it and want to tail me, you can. But we've seen how well my parlay. I think I'm 0 for on parlays in 2021. I think so. Don't listen to me there. Marc-Andre Barrios minus 125. Abu Azatar plus 105. My pick was Abu here, who opened at minus 155. But now that you can get him at plus money, I took a shot here. That is the only official play, Abu, just because he's actually he's got the most accolades out of the Azatar brothers. Abu's actually wrestled, and Abu's actually competed in K1 to other kickboxing around the world. Different varying levels, of course, nothing too crazy, but he's competed. He's actually got the skills. He's not just some muscle-bound magma dude. Although, what's in the bag? That's another thing. Again, this podcast has been telling you for years now. Those Azatar brothers, very sketchy. Pouring gas on people, doing all these things, and then sure enough, and also big thanks and shouts to guys like Kareem Zidane doing the Lord's work there. But sure enough, now you start to hear people going, "Who are these Azatar brothers? Oh, they're pretty well connected, huh?" Again, folks, you don't gotta like me, listen to everything, but I've been telling you this would not. Fact number 100 in the last month that would have been old news to you if you were listening to this show. So, anyways, I'm going to take Azatar here, especially going to give me plus money just on principle. I know Barrios is very durable, but maybe you can outwork him if he survives the storm. But I feel like Azatar is getting a draw at the very least because that's the scenario he loses where he 10-8s, doesn't finish him. And Barrios works his way back in. And if it makes it to the judges, I don't think an Azatar is going to lose, even if we're not on Fight Island. We'll just put it that way. All right. Alonzo Menafield minus 290 against Fabio Charant. Was thinking about parlaying him as that parlay piece. But again, Charant even though he's taking this on short notice, like his last two fights were in LFA, where Menifield comes from. And again, people from LFA, it's a much stronger scene, obviously. And he actually won decisions in LFA. Whereas Menifield, who had arguably just the same amount of experience as Sharant did when he was coming into the UFC, all he had was pretty much like first round finishes, you know. And that's the story on Menifield until he proves otherwise. You know, he's got to be more than a first round fighter. So that alone scares me to lay the chalk on Menifield. That said, Menifield, obviously, Fortis MMA, want them to do well. Menifield, obviously, will be the pick here. All right, how do we do on time? Oh, under an hour. Did good. All right, let's recap these bad boys. Hopefully I didn't lose too many listeners this week. Taking Ngannou over Miocic. Taking Luque over Woodley. Taking O'Malley over Almeida. Taking Maverick over Robertson. That's all the energy. To say that again, Jesus, Dan. Stay on target. Taking Worthy over Malaki. Listen for that Anik Boston drop. Taking Nurmagomedov over Gooden, albeit reluctantly. Taking Oleksiejczuk over Bukauskas. Taking Omar Morales over Barrio Powerbar. Taking Menifield over Sharant. Gonna parlay Luque Morales for plus money probably. Played Abu for 1 unit at plus 105. Yeah, it's another dangerous week for betting, so be careful, folks. I really do love you all. I'm so grateful for you guys being here. Apologies for the heavy intros last 2 weeks. We're going to be moving on ahead to more positive things, and hopefully the world will too. So be good to one another. That's all I ask, man. I love you guys all. I don't care what you are or where you come from. My DMs are always open for you, regardless. Just be good to one another. Good luck on your picks and plays. And always protect your neck.